Good afternoon, Bina. How are
Good
you?
afternoon, Julie. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. As always, how are you?
I'm good. The sun is shining. It is Scorpio.
Scorcho here as well.
But I've got the blinds shut, I've got the fans going, and the windows open. So it's not too bad.
You look very cool, nice and cool in that.
I thought it has to be cool today, no matter what. So,
So welcome everybody to HR Bullets with Bina and Julie, Plain Talking HR and Jaguar White Recruitment. It's August already, the 7th of August.
I know, a week gone out. Already a week gone,
Lots to talk about today. Some that we've already spoken about, but I think the big one is the 31st of October last week was the end of, generally in theory, applications for the job retention scheme, apart from a couple of, there's actually a few exceptions to the rules, as Bina was pointing out earlier about the people coming back from the military or parental leave. So any questions around that, we should definitely ask.
Yeah.
We'll check with Bina, see what the exceptions of the rules are accepted. But yeah, that side of it in terms of coming on to the job retention scheme is now kaput. But there's still lots to offer from the government. So in August, the government paying 80% of salaries, and employers, you do have to pay NI and pension now. We're in August, and as you know, you're going to be paying more in September and more in October. And we'll remind you of that when it comes up, and then it is finito. So we're also going to talk about the flexible furlough scheme that's in place still, job retention bonus, the kickstart scheme, the apprenticeships, the trainee, help financially from the government, the SME Grants. We're going to talk about going back to work in a COVID safe place. We're going to talk about bank holidays and holidays that you really do need to take, and employers have to pay 100%. And we're going to talk about the quarantine 14 days too. So lots to talk about. Bina, over to you. Let's go with some.
Let's get started. Right. Okay. So we talked about furlough scheme and flexible furlough scheme. Furlough, as we know, that actually closed on 10th of June, as Julie just said. And basically, the only two exceptions are if somebody's coming back from a parental leave or maternity leave or whatever, and as long as they work out with the employer, then that's fine. They can be included in the scheme. They'll be eligible. And if somebody is a reservist in any of the forces, military, then they would be eligible, that they're coming back into work, as it were. So they would then be eligible to be furloughed, if that's what it is going to be. So those are the two exceptions. The job retention bonus scheme actually was announced a couple of weeks ago. Again, just emphasizing that the bonuses are going to be there for all employers who have got their employees at work from November till end of January, and they would get £1,000 per employee for doing that, as long as the employee is actually earning at least £520 a week, which is the national minimum wage thing. And also that they should have still been employed, obviously, until end of January. Then they will get that.
And that's paid in February, isn't it?
Everything will be paid in. It will start. The payments will get started from February. So that's basically it. As you also mentioned, that all employers will have to start paying the NI contribution from this month, and the pension contributions for anybody who's on furlough at the moment. Obviously, your own employees, if they're at work, then it's normal. But anybody who's on furlough, you would have to do that. Now, somebody asked me the question to say, can I ask my employees to work free? So that I can adjust the payments for national, NI and NI contributions and for pension. And the answer is, oh, bless you. The answer is no, you can't do that. So you have to be careful about that. And obviously, then, as you said, September, you start paying 10% towards the 80% of the furlough, and in October, 20%. So that is the whole thing going on there. But the main thing is to remember that if you can keep people on board and employed until end of January, then you will be getting £1,000 each for each of the employees. So that's basically it. Then we got the Kickstart scheme we need to look at, and that is for the 16 to 24-year-olds. And anybody who's been long-term unemployed, and which would mean that they are receiving universal benefit. If that's the case, then you can have them on board for 6 months for free, because the government will pay at least 25 hours per week for them, and all their NI and tax and everything else. So as long as you can fulfill those kind of conditions, and I think it's a good scheme to get somebody on board for 6 months for free, and they can work for you for 25 hours per week, and you can get quite a lot done for that. After that, we have got what shall we talk about? New apprenticeships.
Apprenticeship, yes.
Yeah. Again, we touched on this, that anybody, if you take on an apprentice normally, then you would get funding. But here it says that if the apprentice is under the age of 25, you would receive an additional £2,000 for that. And if they are over the age of 25, then 1,500 is what you will receive. And they must have been employed by you at least until 31st of January. So that is always going to be the cutoff date for you to get a bonus. Yeah. And the traineeship, again, same thing. As you know, if you employ a trainee, then you are eligible for a grant from the government. This now, it's all, of course, saying that you would receive an additional £1,000 for that. So it's a win-win situation for a number of people. There are a couple of things that we need to talk about. One is about holidays, and especially the bank holidays, because we got the August bank holiday coming in. And I think employers should be actually informing their employees that they will be receiving that as their bank holiday. So they will be taking that as a bank holiday, so that they will be getting paid 100% for that one day. Unless obviously, it is part of their roster, they're already working as a working day, then the normal, it will be a normal kind of arrangement that they would get a day off in lieu somewhere. Yeah. So
this is definitely worth emphasizing.
Exactly. It depends on the contract, what it is, however it is. But normally, see, the likes of us who are, office workers, as it were, anybody who's normally getting their bank holidays off and they don't go into work, then they must make sure that the employer must make sure that they've notified their employees that that's what's going to happen.
Yes.
So that will be actually registered on the payroll as one day off as bank holiday, and they get payment for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they get paid 100%, and everything's it's just kind of as normal.
It's standard.
Yeah, isn't it? But it's worth emphasising with all of this mix at the moment, and people unsure of what's happening. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think that they would be entitled to accrue that all the holidays, including the bank holidays, which is in a way is true. However, the bank holidays actually are got to be taken as they come along. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Except, as I said, if they're already part of a roster where they're working, and then it's normal kind of stuff for them.
Sure.
Let's talk about quarantine.
I knew that was coming up next.
Well, Q, it's got to be Q before R, hasn't it? Come on.
Yes, yeah. Quarantine's still in place, isn't it? The 14 days. So everyone needs to really think about whether they're going to be travelling at the moment.
Yeah, it depends on where you're travelling to, but most of the countries now have started putting the ban up. So, it is a case of the employee understanding what the quarantine rules are, number one, And the employer also needs to understand and needs to know that realistically they don't have to pay the employee for that period. You know, if somebody is quarantined, what payment arrangements are you going to have between the employer and the employee? So this is something that people should be really discussing with each other, the employer and the employee, about what arrangements they're going to have in place. If the employee, for instance, is able to work from home and their job is such that they can do it from home, then that's fine, and then they just carry on working from there. But if they can't, then that is a conversation to be had long before they go on holiday.
I was going to say, yes, definitely before you decide to go on holiday, because it could cause some difficult conversations. So employers and employees, you need to really be thinking about that now.
I think most of the employers have now got something in place for it anyway. And I don't think many people will get caught short on thinking, oh, what do we do? Somebody's just come back from Spain or somewhere. Oh, no, that is now already in place. It should be. But if it isn't, sometimes maybe, small and medium-sized businesses, they might not have thought about it, or they might have thought, oh, well, nobody's going on holiday, and then suddenly they find that somebody has actually decided to go somewhere. So I would suggest that it's worth just having it, just agreed as to what's going to happen and what are going to be the payment arrangements for that period.
Anyone that hasn't communicated out to your workforce now, just in case it's coming up in the next few weeks.
Well, because it is August, it is September, people are really desperate to get away. So think about that. And the dreaded R word, redundancies. Not the good R, but the bad R. I will go with the bad one this time first. And that's basically, obviously people can be made redundant, as most people know that a lot of people who've been on furlough have been given redundancy notices in July, and they're being made redundant this month as well. And again, there was a notice, a direction that came out of the government, GovUK, last week, saying that people who've been furloughed and who are now being made redundant must receive 100% full pay on their gross redundancy payment and also on the notice pay. Now, to me, that was just kind of, why do we need that direction? Because it's just automatically, it is obvious that redundancy payments will go back into being their own pay, their own full-time pay. So, it kind of thought, that means that some people must have tried it on, or some people are totally confused, or both,
Totally naive to it.
Oh, well, that too.
I'm sure it's a mix.
Well, we're not here in a judgment. We're not making a judgment call. All I'm saying is that obviously that direction has come in, which it surprised me, but then all these things happen for a reason. So employers, you must make sure that when you're making people redundant, their redundancy gross payment, and it is a gross payment still, and it is still 100% of their own pay. So you have to work out what the redundancy payment is. You also need to make sure that the notice pay is also of their own pay and 100% of what they are eligible for. So whatever the contract says or whatever you're doing, that should be still followed. And it is so critical that you follow the redundancy procedures. Make sure that you follow it to the letter T, because just because we're in COVID, it does not give you any excuse or any kind of reason as to not following the process. So make sure that you have got the right selection criteria as to why you're making people redundant. Have that first notification going out to say you want to have a formal meeting with them. Have the meeting, make sure that you confirm the outcome to say they're that was a consultation meeting, and you're going into, and and all the consultation stuff that you need to talk about. Then have a second consultation meeting, and then if you're making them redundant, follow that up with the redundancy confirmation letter with all the details about what they're actually being paid and what their rights are, including the right that they have a right to appeal against that redundancy. So, and this is it, see, if you haven't done any of these things in place, technically you will fail on a technicality because you did not follow the process. So you might have all the best intentions in the world, but if you don't follow it, then you can be taken to court, as it were, to employment tribunal. Well, you're giving a reason to the employees to claim against you. And again, one of the things that people forget quite often is that the right to appeal, it is a right to appeal. So make sure that if somebody does appeal, and you're still very much in the process, part of that process. So do complete it. Make sure that you respond correctly in time and have a meaningful, meeting with them, and make sure that everything is done by the book on that as well. Yeah.
And any questions, definitely pick up the phone to Bina. She is the expert on this. She's doing it day in and day out. We both know, but Bina's the expert on it.
Yeah, it's not happening a lot. It's happening a lot at the moment. So
it's just not worth taking any chances. We don't want any employers out there to have to go through an appeal. And can you imagine? You just don't need that.
And to be honest, you see, the employees also, as far as they're concerned, they want to be treated fairly. And given that, and sometimes, it may be that they may have a doubt in their head that something has not quite been done quite correctly. Now they've got nothing to lose by putting a claim in at the moment. They don't have to pay for it. So that means that you can put a claim in and say, hey,
people are desperate as well, for money.
And people are desperate, exactly.
Yeah, definitely a red flag around that, I'd say.
Just because we are in COVID-19, please, that doesn't give you, the excuse or the reason to skip the process. Do it, please, because otherwise it will be costly. It will be so costly in every way. Yeah, so that's that. And the good art is up to you.
It's recruitment, although it's a good eye in that it's recruitment, but it's not booming right now. It's not going to be booming. It's August, it's holiday season. It's never booming in August.
No.
But just giving you loads of positivity out there. If you're making people redundant, just give them positivity. It's not a great time. But, the word on the street is it's going to get better. October, November especially, as long as this is not this huge second wave, which we're all hoping it's not going to be, so we're not going to think about that. We're going to push that away. But I think as well, if you are going through a process and talking to people and making them redundant, one thing I've noticed over the last couple of weeks, because I'm recruiting for I'm lucky enough to recruit for a couple of roles at the moment, and I think a lot of agencies, have a lot of screening questions when they're putting adverts together or searching, etc. So if it is an advert that you're replying to, and you don't answer a question specifically, and they're going off who's answered these correctly and have got 5 marks. If you've got 4, you will not get into that top pile. So my emphasis here is to make sure you read adverts, make sure you align your CV to your skills that match as best you can. And if you're going to apply, go the extra mile, write a covering letter, answer the questions thoroughly so that you get bumped to the top of the pile. It might sound a really simple thing, but we're talking 300 people per advert at the moment. So if they're going to say these people have answered all the questions, they've got the right skills, they're going to get seen first. However, we do have a few people pulling a few porkies and saying they have skills that they don't when you do open the CV. So, but you know what? I just think, at the moment, people are going to try their arm, aren't they?
Exactly. And I think this is where I would say that anybody who either is being made redundant or looking around or whatever, or they're still, they might be still looking for a job, as it were, update your CV, because August, as you said, is fairly quiet.
Yeah.
So it might be one of those times when, although it's quiet, it might be that, your CV, updated CV is up there on the job boards or with an agency like you, and you get chosen and you get a job, because people are still recruiting. Okay, not maybe a lot, but they still are. And before you know it, August will be over and people will be, coming back and so on. So update your CV. If you don't have, if you don't really understand what needs to go in there, talk to somebody like Julie.
Yeah, definitely pick up the phone.
Talk to me. Yeah, talk to somebody who knows what's going on with it. And it's all about selling yourself in a positive light. As Julie said, don't put too many porcupines. In fact, don't put any porkies in there, because it's very easy, actually, quite easy to find out if somebody is kind of exaggerating, things about themselves a lot more than, what they really are. Yeah, I suppose it depends on the recruiter as well, but somebody like you or me, we will see through it fairly quickly.
That's right. But I will also give a lot of time to people that are writing in, as best I can, and respond to them, without a doubt. So I can't speak for everybody, but I'm sure there's a lot of recruiters out there. I know a lot of good ones that will do a great job to help. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the positive stuff. Well, I have come to the end of my stuff and my topics for today.
Did you just want to mention about the grant that was offered that came out last week, the SME grant for our lovely clients out there? It might be relevant because I spoke to one of my clients this week about that, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
And she thinks she might be eligible for it. So
yeah, because I think it basically, I think there's something like 20 million plus available, and if anybody wants to go on to it, it was announced last week again. I think it was on 31st of July.
Yeah, right.
And all you people need to do is just go on to GovUK site, or if they can't find it, talk to us, contact us, and we can give you the link.
We'll put the link under here again.
We're on here as well. Yeah. And basically, we're just saying that you can actually, as an SME, the government is actually making it a lot easier for people who may need more extra help to boost their business with maybe services like, they might need to boost their website, or they need some IT advice or HR advice or payroll advice or whatever, or marketing, anything like that, or R&D, whatever it is that you feel that now your business could do with that to get you up and running. Then there are a number of these centres being created all around the UK, and then you just go through the local council that way. They're not just purely local councils. I think they're like hubs. So, for instance, for Bedfordshire, I couldn't find one for Bedfordshire, but I think the nearest is Hertfordshire for us. So you would need to just go into that, and then there is an application process. Yeah,
it's definitely, if you're an SME and you need that extra boost, it's definitely worth looking.
It's worth looking into it, definitely. And even if you get a little bit out of it, and it gives you that edge, then it's all the better for us. So so that's going to be there for SMEs. And I think there's a lot of other stuff coming through, like grants for your, under the green eco grants for your homes and so on, and that more I think information will be coming out in the next week or so on that. So again, so these are all the things, because if people are working from home, and you're spending a lot more time at home, and you might need some stuff like that. And if you qualify for it, then why not?
Absolutely.
Take advantage of it.
So watch this space. We'll be back with more exciting financial help from the government as it's announced. Hot off the press, won't we, Bina? Hot off the press.
Exactly. Well, that's what I do now. I keep looking at every single announcement that comes out from the government, so just to see if there's anything that is applicable to any of us here, and that it would help anyone. That's what we are here for, aren't we? All of us. To help each other. So yeah.
And it was great this week. So I was talking to a client that I've just recruited a finance role for, and she was saying about how bad a few months she'd had, and this month was a particularly great. July was one of the best. However, they're still sort of down. And I mentioned to her, did you know about this? And she hadn't seen that, so she's going to go on that. She needs some extra IT help, etc. So yeah. She could be the one. So yeah, it's good to end on a positive note, don't you think?
Exactly. And it's gonna be such a sunny weekend. Maybe get a sunstroke if you're not careful. Oh. No, but it is quite warm, so people need to be careful and make sure you do your social distancing. We still need to do that.
And if you need to get out of the sun in the house, update your CV.
Exactly, got it in one. But it's lovely to talk to you. Yeah. Lovely to talk to you again and see you. And see you next week.
Have a great weekend, Bina. And that's it for today, guys and girls. And we'll see you next week. Take care. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.